Welcome to the analysis of Twice by Christina Rossetti. So to begin with, the most important thing to think about is the fact that there is a regular rhyme scheme in this poem, and this reflects an attempt to assert control over emotions. So you'll see that in most of this poem, Rossetti is trying to control how she feels and repress the emotions that she's experiencing. And one of the ways in which this is done is through the regularity of the structure. So it starts with a possessive pronoun, which could suggest an empowerment. There's also an active verb in took, which also emphasises how empowered she could feel, or the narrator feels. However, when it comes to talk about her heart, that could suggest vulnerability, the idea that she's quite exposed, even though she's giving herself to somebody, she is vulnerable in doing so. Oh my love, acts as a refrain, and you'll see it repeated throughout the poem. The parenthesis around oh my love could suggest that this is an afterthought, which in turn could suggest that it's not sincere, or it could be something that's inescapable, so she keeps coming back to, almost like a distraction. And then it makes the reader think about who the audience might be, or the intended audience, which presumably at this point is her lover. The O is quite a passionate exclamation, or it could be despairing or regret because she doesn't know what's about to happen. She doesn't feel secure in the relationship that she's in. The anaphora here of let me suggests submission. So she's giving herself up to somebody and saying, basically, you can do what you like. Let me fall or stand, let me live or die, and leaves it entirely up to their will. The contrast of falling and standing and living or dying connotes the severity of the situation. And then she says, but this once hear me speak, which is a struggle to be heard, which could be on this personal level between her and her partner, or could be on a wider scale where she's not being heard in society because of the patriarchy. So the refrain used here undermines the empowerment that was perhaps evoked in the line previous, where she asks to be heard. It's almost as if her resolve weakens when she thinks about her love. And then she comes on to say, yet a woman's words are weak. And again, this references the patriarchy and Rossetti's exploration of the limitations of her gender. This is emphasised in the final line of this stanza, where the subordinate, not I, is both a literal subordinate clause but also a metaphorical subordinate, because she is a subordinate person. However, it does end with the personal pronoun of I, which could suggest that there is an element of self-control. So you'll notice at the beginning of this stanza that it starts with you, whereas the first stanza started with I, which suggests a change in focus. And it also has took, which is the same as the first stanza. However, the fact that it's someone taking her heart suggests that she's incredibly vulnerable, and there's certainly a power change evident here. The internal rhyme with the assonance of I between smile and I could suggest that this is an insincere action from her partner. So if you smile, you can't smile with a critical eye. It doesn't work together. So the fact that this is happening suggests that they're not what they make themselves out to be, that they're actually quite critical of her and almost pretending to be nice. She's being scanned, which could link to the Victorian marriage market, almost as if she's being appraised to see if she's fertile enough or worthy of being a wife. And then when the heart is referred to as it and it being set down, this is quite a cold and detached way of referring to it, which could suggest that she's being objectified by her partner. The partner replies, it is still unripe. So there are lots of different readings of this word unripe. It could suggest that she's not mature enough yet. It could suggest that she's not sexually mature enough. It could suggest that actually she has such a strong relationship with God that her partner isn't willing to be with her until she can give him as much love as she gives God. There's a link to apple gathering here as well, obviously, with the ripeness and being ready. The partner also suggests that they should wait while the skylarks pipe, and the skylarks represent happiness. And also there's a link to P.B. Shelley's poem Skylark Song, which is about divine inspiration and waiting to be free and enlightened. So perhaps they're waiting for something, and this might just be an excuse because he doesn't like her that much. There's also a suggestion to wait until the corn grows brown, and that could be about being ripe and being ready so that you can be harvested, or it could be waiting so long that you eventually end in death. So it perhaps references the shelf life of women in the Victorian period. This stanza becomes much more emotional and much more angry than the previous two stanzas. So the metaphor here about the heartbreak demonstrates how damaging the heartbreak is, and the monosyllabic language in these two lines is quite a frank interpretation of the heartbreak that she suffers, which actually subverts expectations of gender because she doesn't go over the top, she isn't hysterical about it, she's just very matter of fact as to what's happened. This is emphasised and complemented by the fact that there's a conjunction here of but, which shows that she didn't wince when she had her heart broken, so she almost didn't react to it. And this again subverts Victorian expectations of women who are meant to fall apart when they are without their men. The trochee here of broke but signifies some sort of resurrection because of the way that the meter is used to emphasise but, and it shows a determination on her part to revive herself and carry on. There's certainly a suggestion that she's repressing how she feels, and this is very similar to what happens in Memory, where she represses the memory of her lover. She very much does this with the pain that she experiences. And she says, I have not often smiled, but I've not questioned since. So her repression is her coping mechanism. She also says she's not cared for cornflowers wild, and in folklore, cornflowers were worn by men to show that they were single and ready to mingle, and when the flowers faded, it suggested that their love for their partner was unrequited, or they didn't love them anymore. So it's basically a symbol of dating, I suppose. And she's not been thinking about that, obviously, because her heart's just been broken. Similarly, she hasn't been singing with the singing bird, which could suggest that she's not happy. Also that maybe she's not thinking about being in a relationship, because singing birds often are communicating in order to mate during springtime. So perhaps that's what that's referring to as well. There's a change in the rhyme scheme in this stanza, and that suggests a shift in tone. This stanza is very similar to Memory in that this is almost like the second part of the poem, where she decides to develop herself and her self-worth and resurrect her inner feelings. But there's definitely a shift in tone, and it starts with I take my heart in my hand. So again, there's this change in tense which happens in Memory too, and this suggests that she is reviving because she took her heart before, now she takes it, so she's almost getting it back. The altered anaphora without the parenthesis, so now it's oh my God compared with oh my love previously, and the parenthesis has gone, could suggest that this is a more worthy love than the earthly love that she experienced before. And the rephrasing of this line from the previous stanza, where she takes her heart and keeps it in her hand, allows her a chance to repair herself. When the word thou is used, it reflects a personal relationship with God that she's now able to have since she relinquished her earthly love. And she's very critical of earthly love, and she talks about her hope being written on the sand. And the idea of that is quite temporary, and that it will disappear and you can't rely on it, unlike the love for God. And you'll see this is emphasised in the rhyme between sand and stand, and those opposites show the difference between earthly love and godly love, in that sand reflects the temporal nature of earthly love, whereas the stand suggests that godly love is strong and reliable. In the next stanza, she talks about the contempt of a man, and contempt basically just means being scorned by a man, or the condemnation by a man. And it sounds a bit like contaminated, almost as though she has turned into a fallen woman because she has lost her love, and therefore nobody else will interact with her. Quite similar to apple gathering. She offers her love to God, and this is similar to memory, and you'll see the difference between the way that she is appraised by her partner and the way she's now offering herself to be appraised by God. Previously, she found it invasive. However, when she asks God to scan her, she basically says, look within, look without, check everything, make sure I'm pure enough for you. And she refers to burning fire so that we can, burning gold with fire to remove the impurities. And that's also a reference to baptism in fire from Matthew in the Bible. So it's about making sure that she is pure enough to be with God. And perhaps this is about taking away the memory of her partner and the experiences that she had with him. She also suggests that she needs to purge, and this is a fierce rejection of the earthly love that she felt previously, and it's very similar to What Would I Give? And then she gives herself to God to be in thy hold, and this suggests that he has a very sure grasp that can protect her. It could also reference a ship's hold, which again is a place of safety. The final line with no one can pluck it out could be a reference to virginity in the same way that it is in an apple gathering where they pluck the blossoms. It could also suggest safety because, again, in the Bible from John, it says, neither shall any man pluck them out of my heart. So it's that certainty that once she's given herself to God, she will never lose that love. It has that security. So on to the final stanza. So again, she starts this stanza with, I take my heart in my hand. And this is just repeated to reinforce the empowerment and certainty that she began to feel in the previous stanza. This compares with the first stanza. So in the first stanza, she asks her partner to decide if she lives or dies. And in the final stanza, she makes that decision. She says, I shall not die, but live. And this shows how assertive she now is. But then she says that she will submit completely to God. So she says, all that I have I bring, all that I am I give. And this contrasts with the earthly relationship where she didn't seem as though she was willing to give that much of herself to her partner. And these almost seem like vows. They're very reminiscent of a marriage ceremony, showing that perhaps her final relationship will be with God. And at the end, she talks about the fact that she will sing. And remember, previously she couldn't sing and the skylark would pass by. So this could be a reference to the fact that she's found her happiness. And the only way she could have done that was through godly love. The final line of the final stanza shows that the narrator remains voiceless because she won't question much. And that could be because she's happy now. So even though she is powerless, she's made her decision and she's happy with that decision.